Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching India Today Global. The big story coming in from New York. UNGA address was nothing but a Trump show. His first speech during his second term at the White House was filled with praises for the achievements of his administration, jibes at the opposition, and his unending claims of attempts to bring peace across the world. The president's speech begins by mocking the UN, saying the building does not have a good escalator and a failed teleprompter, forcing him to read out from papers. He also highlighted how his policies have reshaped the American borders and shipped the alien immigrants back to their countries. Trump reiterated his desire to win the Nobel Peace Prize after asserting that his attempts ended the 7 unending wars, which included India and Pakistan. He continued to allege that India and China have benefited Russia by buying its oil and thereby indirectly funded the Russian war machine. He urged the European nations to impose sanctions so that Russian economy could cripple. Trump's unfounded claims and allegations have affected India-US ties. The recent one has been the H-1B visa hike, which jolted the IT sector. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, meanwhile, also met with his counterpart, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, in New York yesterday. And during an interview, Secretary Rubio was hopeful that the US will be able to fix the additional tariff or secondary penalties of 25% imposed on India.
I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen, but she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Likewise, in a period of just 7 months, I have ended 7 unendable wars. They said they were unendable. You're never going to get them solved. Some were going for 31 years, 2 of them, 31, think of it, 31 years. One was 36 years. One was 28 years. I ended 7 wars, and in all cases they were raging with countless thousands of people being killed. This includes Cambodia and Thailand, Kosovo and Serbia, the Congo and Rwanda, a vicious, violent war that was, Pakistan and India, Israel and Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia, and Armenia and Azerbaijan. It included all of them. China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one? In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs, which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly. But for those tariffs to be effective, European nations, all of you are gathered here right now, would have to join us in adopting the exact same measures.
A little over 56 minutes and under just about an hour, this speech of President Trump was the first after he took office for the second time. And while we saw a lot of cheers and laughter last time around, this time nobody laughed. There is an absolute eerie silence and discomfort when it comes to the speech made by President Trump in what he's saying and portraying to the world. It began with him entering the United Nations General Assembly building, like you see on the screens, but also as soon as President Trump and the First Lady stepped on the escalator stopped working, and then they had to walk up the stairs or the escalator. Clearly, that was not the only problem that President Trump faced. The other big problem was the teleprompter stopped working, and therefore, the beginning of President Trump's speech focused on the fact that it's a dysfunctional or malfunctional United Nations. It's broken, and President Trump tried to fix it. He pitched to build the building and was not given the opportunity. Pranay Upadhyay, my colleague, joins me for more on this. Pranay, he began with by hurling insults at the United Nations, and it continued with lecturing to many of the nations as well.
Definitely, Geeta. He was there on that preaching podium. He was teaching the world leaders that, how the UN as an institution has failed, how it has not delivered, how much benevolent United States have been, how US is doing. He is sharing the burden of things which UN should have been doing, and how, UN has not supported him. He has stopped so-called 7 wars, and he did not even receive a phone call from the United Nations, but only he gets is a broken escalator and a non-functional teleprompter. So definitely it was his complaint with the UN from the podium of the United Nations, but definitely he also listed out many issues, including his effort to stop the war of Russia and Ukraine, his effort to stop and find a solution of Gaza and Israel conflict. Also, how he is trying to redefine the policy of the mass migration, how he is trying to control and bring order in the United States. So he listed out many things in his speech of 56 minutes and 41 seconds. It was a long speech, but definitely it has its own ramification, it has own impact, because when the US president speaks, definitely it has its own impact on the global policy and the way the global order functions, because he holds an important position.
Right, Pranay, also explain to us how this works. On the one hand, we have Dr. Jaishankar and Rubio meeting that took place in New York. On the other hand, we have Piyush Goyal meeting with trade representatives in Washington, D.C. But President Trump keeps pressing the Europeans now to impose sanctions like America did, and he is telling or blaming India and China for the war. How does this work, this equation?
Very interesting and a very complicated situation, Geeta. On one side, United States is engaging with India at the ministerial level. You mentioned out both the meetings and the engagement. Not only that, US President himself has posted on social media that he hoped that soon India and United States bilateral trade agreement will be concluded. Both the countries are taking forward their relationship, how US is engaging with India. But on the other side, he keep harping that issue that how India's oil purchase from Russia is fueling the Russian war machine. However, India has umpteen time explained its position that why it is a compulsion, why it is a requirement of India to ensure its energy security, and unless we have been given a steady source of energy supply, we are compelled to buy the Russian oil, and which is the requirement for India. But on the other side, if you see how he is dealing with this relationship, I think that engagement, unless it reached some final solution, it hasn't reached to him, and he thinks that from that UN podium, he requires to mention that thing. But if you notice one thing, besides India and China, he actually called out the EU countries, European countries, that they are on one side fighting with Russia, making a call to fight Russia. On the other side, they are the one who are actually buying in large volumes the Russian oil and gas.
Right. In fact, it seemed like he blamed everybody but the United States of America under him. Pranay Upadhyay, thank you so much for joining us here. Now, US owes United Nations big money, but will America pay up? If President Trump's speech at the UN is anything to go by, then it seems highly unlikely. Trump insulted UN infrastructure and then lectured other nations. But this time, nobody laughed. Why? We tell you with this detailed analysis on statecraft. You can watch the entire episode on India Today Global's YouTube channel. But for now, here is the excerpt.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
Donald Trump has stormed back into the United Nations in 2025 with a swagger that no longer draws laughter but chills. Gone is the 2018 moment when delegates chuckled at his boasts.
America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
Now they lean forward, wary, calculating, bracing. In his second term, the America First president is not merely withdrawing. He's wielding America's wallet like a weapon. Over $3 billion in unpaid dues, historic cuts to peacekeeping and humanitarian programs, and a shuttered U.S. aid send one message: comply or go broke. World leaders know flattery won't work and that their budgets may collapse if Washington turns the tap. Is Trump's mission to slash U.S. funding, especially at the UN, a revolution in global power or a slow-motion demolition of multilateralism? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. We've all had our moments in childhood where our parents would threaten to lessen or withdraw our pocket money in order to force us to listen to them. This is exactly how Trump has been treating the United Nations, like a disobedient child. Since January 20, 2025, Trump has frozen nearly every foreign aid disbursement, dismantled US aid, and invoked the first pocket recession in 50 years to cancel $5 billion Congress had approved for international programs. This isn't routine belt tightening, it's an audacious test of how far a US president can go in bypassing lawmakers to punish or pressure global institutions. The UN's budget is already down 15% for 2026. Agencies are merging and jobs are being slashed. Allies from Europe to Africa whisper about contingency plans. Will this strategy bend the UN to America's will or push the world body into China and Russia's arms instead? But critics see coercion, not conciliation. The United States, historically UN's indispensable funder, is now its biggest delinquent. That delinquency has become Trump's leverage. Numbers tell the story. Mid-2025, an extra $5 billion in foreign aid eliminated. Earlier, $9 billion clawed back. August 29th, first pocket recession since 1977 cancels billions from US aid's development accounts. Programs on poverty reduction, climate, and inclusion wiped off the ledger. September 13th, funding suspended for flagship health initiatives, triggering warnings of immediate harm to patients worldwide. September 22nd, 23rd, Trump arrives at the UNGA with the US already $3 billion behind on dues and an unprecedented 15% cut baked into the UN's 2026 budget. The message is clear: multilateralism will live or die on America's terms. Trump's funding cuts don't stop at the UN's main budget. He's already withdrawn from the World Health Organization and the UN Human Rights Council, slashing America's footprint in agencies once central to global coordination on pandemics, rights, and development. Trump's defunding drive coincides with diplomatic isolation over Palestinian statehood. France, Belgium, the UK, Australia, and many others formally recognize Palestine. The US doubles down on Israel. Allies weigh whether to distance themselves or try to outflatter Trump. Meanwhile, the administration touts tariffs, border crackdowns, and ended wars as proof its approach works. At home, critics warn of lost influence. Abroad, leaders whisper about a post-American UN. The UN must decide whether to reform under pressure, seek alternative financing, or drift into irrelevance. Nations from Europe to Africa to Asia must decide whether to stick with a cash-strapped UN or pivot to other platforms. Trump says Tylenol causes autism, but does science back it up? Donald Trump has claimed that taking Tylenol during pregnancy could cause autism. What is Tylenol? It's a brand name for what we call paracetamol in India. But what's the real story? Sneha Mordani with this report.
A new day, a new controversy surrounding President Donald Trump. This time it is a popular paracetamol which has got terrible press from the mercurial leader. Tylenol is now under scanner. Trump has linked the popular paracetamol to autism, asking pregnant women not to consume it.
First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of acetaminophen, which is basically commonly known as Tylenol, during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism.
Experts are saying this is utterly careless and irresponsible.
I think that this is something which is irrelevant at the moment. We do not have any clinical data. We do not have proper trial and analysis to comment something like this. It is a very serious allegation which you are putting, and I think that the medical team needs to verify and clear up with their mindset before coming up with such bizarre ideas.
The fact is that pregnant women in general are advised to not take any medications, especially in the first trimester, given that there could be risks involved. Drugs or medications taken in pregnancy can cross the placenta and impact on the developing baby. There are a range of possible effects, but here, Trump has singled out a popular paracetamol available and used widely all over, including in India. And this will have serious implications, will cause confusion, panic, and vilification of a medicine considered the only safe over-the-counter option for pain or fever for pregnant people. Fact is, the science on the connection between Tylenol and autism is not settled. A 2024 peer-reviewed Swedish study published in JAMA that included more than 2 million children found no association between acetaminophen taken in pregnancy and autism, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or any other neurodevelopmental disorder. Science has shown autism is mostly rooted in genetics, with the discovery of several hundred genes that play a role. Those genes can be inherited even if the parent shows no signs of autism, or mutations can occur as the brain is developing and its rapidly dividing cells make mistakes. Well, this is not the first time that a statement of this kind has been made by Donald Trump. Earlier, he had said that COVID would go away, downplaying the seriousness of the infection. He'd also said that 99% of the times COVID was harmless. He had said doctors get money if someone dies from COVID. Well, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Trump's health secretary, is an anti-vaccine activist. Clearly, worrying signs that in Trump administration, science could just possibly be taking the back seat. In New Delhi, Sneha Mordani for India Today Television.
Pro-Palestine protests broke out across Italy after Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni did not recognize Palestine as a state at the United Nations. It disrupted transport services, closed down schools. It is after France having recognized Palestine. Italy is one of the European countries after Germany that is holding out.
E chiediamo a Israele di cessare gli attacchi.
After Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni did not formally recognize Palestine as a state, pro-Palestine supporters came out onto the streets across the country to protest against the stand of their Prime Minister.
This is an extraordinary showing. There are strikes and demonstrations in 65 cities with 90% participation in public transit and 50% of railway workers. It is a powerful, popular message against the logic of war and against the genocide of Palestine. The government should take note and reflect. Immediate serving of relations with Israel.
Hundreds of pro-Palestinian demonstrators marched onto the port of Genoa, one of the many ports blocked in Italy by dock workers and protesters, demanding Italy stop being used as a staging post for the transfer of arms and other supplies to Israel that is at war with the Hamas in Gaza. The protests were part of a nationwide strike called by trade unions against the mass killings of Palestinians in Gaza. According to local media, more than 10 people were arrested in Milan and around 60 police officers suffered bruising or more serious injuries. Transport services also faced disruption, and a number of schools across Italy were closed following strikes called by a group of unions in solidarity with the Palestinian people. Violence flared at a pro-Palestinian protest at the center of Milan. In the southern city of Naples, there were skirmishes with the police as protesters forced their way into the main railway station. France has been the latest country to join the list of countries to recognize a Palestinian state at the UNGA this week. The UK, Canada, Australia and Portugal too have recognized the Palestinian state. Pressure is mounting on Israel to end the Gaza war and recognize the two-state policy. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had earlier vowed to stop the creation of a Palestinian state. The US has meanwhile not granted visas to Palestinian officials, including their President Mahmoud Abbas, to attend this year's UN General Assembly session. This had prompted a resolution to allow Abbas to address world leaders gathered at the General Assembly via a video link. Abbas is among the 80 Palestinian officials whose visas have been revoked by the United States. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
That's all in this edition of India Today Global. Do stay tuned to India Today for all the latest news and updates. Goodbye and take care.